started. First, we're going to do introductions. Jim, do you want to start? We'll go down.
Vice Chair, City Council.
Lisa Martinez, City Council.
Lee Ziegler, City Engineer.
Steve Welder, Public Works.
Jason Knighting, Sunbury Municipal Authority.
Josh Brochus, Mayor.
John Barnard, Sunbury City Council.
Derek Backer, City Administrator.
Jeff Lewis, Sunbury Flood Control.
First off, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. We're here to discuss the Susquehanna Avenue project. I know a lot of people have heard a lot of different things about it, so we wanted to make sure we had a public meeting and invite everybody that this phase will affect, and make sure that everybody that has any questions do get those answered. This project is actually a second part of the project, overall project that we started. This project really started when we started doing Reagan Street. So Reagan, we did, obviously everybody's familiar with that project, but we did a, stormwater and sewer separation as well as a water pipeline replacement. So doing that, we had to do Susquehanna as well to get full separation to alleviate some of the flooding issues that happened under Reagan Street underpass, and also to really upgrade the aging utilities on the roadway itself. So Lee, if you could go over just the portion of the project as far as show everybody where it's going to be at.
Sure, okay. So starting from the Reagan Street project where we just finished in Susquehanna, we'll be progressing north on Susquehanna Avenue. So we're going to do probably a block at a time or 2 blocks at a time for this first phase. What's going to happen, we're going to be replacing, of course, the stormwater and sewer. Right now it's a combined sewer system right now. We're going to be separating that out, putting a separate stormwater line in and a new sewer line in. All the sewer laterals will be replaced. Also, your water laterals will be replaced back to the curb line. Where we'll put in a clean out, and at that point in that back will remain your existing laterals. We're also going to be widening the street. So currently, the street's only a 30-foot curb to curb. Once we're done, it's going to be 36 feet. We're going to actually be taking the curb line back 3 feet each side. That way it makes the street a lot more easier to pass. It will still remain with parking on both sides of the street as it is now. That doesn't change. There'll still be a grass strip between the curb and the sidewalk. We're just reducing that on each side. While we're also doing the project, we'll also be updating ADA crosswalks at intersections, as well as areas where there's poor sidewalks. We'll be replacing the sidewalks. All the work will be in front of your homes. Nothing will be back and behind. The only thing we'll be doing on the sides. Some of these you can see. As we get up, I'll show you a couple. But any downspouts from the front of your homes will be connected. So we're actually taking those out time into the storm pipes. That will all be done underground. So starting at this location, heading north, PP&L here soon will be actually relocating the poles back. Some of these poles get set back, so there's room for the curb relocations. The curb switches right here in this area is where the curb's going to come back to 3 feet on both sides of the street. Here's an area where there's slate sidewalks. The slate will be taken out. It'll be up to the homeowners. If you want those slate, you're welcome to have them on your property. Just let us know. We'll work with the contractors, make sure they put them where you want them. If not, the contractors will just take them away for you. All the little sidewalks that come out to your parking areas, those will remain. We'll be pouring those back in as well throughout the process. Any of the large street trees that are there will be coming out. Most of these are way overgrown at this point. They're causing problems with the roadway and the sidewalks.
That tree's no longer there.
Yeah, I know that one's not, but I'm just, as I'm thinking about it. But also the stumps that are there, they'll be coming out as well. So we'll be digging those out with the contractors as we go through this. And if there's any, as I'm passing someone's property, if there's something specific you want about your property, feel free to ask. And like I said, here at this intersection, we'll be doing redoing all the crosswalks, making them all ADA compliant. We'll be setting new catch basins along the street with intersecting pipes. We'll talk about the water main gets replaced, the fire hydrants will get replaced as well in this project. When we get to Master, We are going back master, back to this house. We're actually going to be picking up these two homes with new sewer lines and new sewer laterals as well. That way it continues with the separation process that we're working on.
What about that block right there with that little house? They have no back behind, no road behind their house, no alley. And you're doing Mosser Street too?
All we're doing on Mosser.
Like how will they get to it? I live across from there. But
Yeah, no, well, they still can access it from Front Street. And, well, I mean, Susquehanna will be closed, so they'll have to,
Yeah.
they'll locate it from Front Street.
That first block there.
In Mosser, we're only gonna be just going on this half of the street, so it won't be completely closed, so that way they'll still have access.
I got the property on the left-hand side there.
This one here?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mosser Street. My understanding is you're only gonna be replacing the water and sewer?
I'm just replacing just the sewer line back through.
Okay.
As far as anywhere east, all we're doing is we're gonna come back past the tie-ins. So like back here about where this telephone pole is, where the stop sign is, that's where the work will stop. We're not going to be advancing anywhere farther east on any of the side streets. As we continue on up Susquehanna, like I said, the same type of work we going on. Wherever we gotta come back in to tie in sewer lines, water laterals, we gotta replace the concrete slab that's gonna remain. If your sidewalks are in good shape, we'll replace them, match them as best we can to the existing sizes. Areas like this where there's a lot of concrete, like here's concrete from curb to porch, we'll be taking all that concrete out. There'll be a 5-foot general concrete sidewalk width. So that if so in this case, there'll probably be about a 2-foot of grass strip put back in. But like I said, we will put in some pathways out to the park areas. If you have existing driveways, they'll remain. We'll put your driveways back in. We'll do depressed curbs. We're also dropping the street elevation. So right now, as you see, the street is almost the same elevation as the top of the curb, which causes some probably issues for some of you guys when it rains. We're actually gonna get a 6-inch curb reveal back, so we're actually dropping the street grade probably about 6 inches. Because most places we couldn't change sidewalk grade, sidewalks had to stay with the work. We're also going to make sure we maintain slope from the front of the homes out towards the sidewalk, so that way anything as far as water landing on the sidewalks in front of the street. We've also shot grades to make sure we're not going to pond any waters back into your yards. So it should improve your drainage as well throughout the process. If you have a duplex home, we'll be slitting back sewer lines and laterals for both sides. If currently right now you're only using one sewer line, we'll just connect to one sewer, but the other one will be there for the future if you decide to do a subdivision on a duplex home. That way that's taken care of. If you decide at that point in time you do want to do interior plumbing, you can connect to where our laterals will end. Like I said, they're going to end right there behind the curb line. That's where the clean house and the water tap would be. That back to the home would be on the individual property owner if they decide to want to do that. As well as if any of you want to replace your sewer lateral from that location back to your home, and this would be definitely a time to do it while the construction's open. But again, that would be on your own cost. The city is just going to be solving the curb line. Now, Mike's group will be doing an inspection of those laterals, so if they see there's an issue, they'll notify the homeowners and let you know. So that's just something to be aware of as well as we do the process. The other thing with this too, while I'm just thinking of it, UGI is also going to be updating their gas main. Currently, it's on this side of the street. They're actually going to move the gas line on this side of the street. That's probably going to be done this summer. I don't know if they haven't actually given us a date yet when they're going to start, but I know they're in the design right now of that. So they're going to be upgrading that gas main, retying, as a matter of fact, even redoing all your service laterals as well.
And late back to the sewer line, the homeowner has the right to take and use our contractor or get their own contractor.
Yes. Yeah, and like Jim was just stating, as far as if you want to replace your sewer lateral or go ahead and extend that water lateral back, we'll have a unit cost from our contractor, what that cost will be. So if you decide you just want the contractor to do it while they're there, you're more welcome to do that. If that's more expensive what you want to pay, and you can have your own contractor do it, that's fine as well. At Greeno, this is already a separated street, so there's not really anything that goes on at Greeno itself. So we're just going to be paving back to about this location for some new stormwater inlets, the 88 curb cuts we talked about down at Nasser. Do the same thing at Greeno. Going up through Expressway up Susquehanna up to Packard, it's going to be the same type of construction we talked about. So this will be the first part of it, to Packard Street. Once that part gets about complete, as a matter of fact, that it is complete, we're up to this point. What we're going to do is repave Susquehanna, open that section back up, then the contractor is going to work in this section of Packard. So it's going to be starting at Front Street, and it's going to end right here at the end of this radius. What we have to do at Packard is that's where our next storm line crossing at Front Street is going to be. So we just did that at Reagan, 2 years ago when we did the construction at Reagan. The same thing's going to happen here. We're going to be boring under Front Street with a 48-inch storm line, and then bringing it back Packard, and then it turns and runs up north Susquehanna, and also eventually it's designed to advance east of Packard. The reason why we're doing this is to help some of the flooding that happens up around North 2nd Street. Now, depending upon costs, how we're bidding it, this is the base bid, so this is what we're definitely doing with the funding we're going to have. If we get good numbers, or we also have some grants that are out right now that are being reviewed. If we get some of those grants back, our idea would be to take us one more block towards Amy, just to go and that again would be done during this Packard Street portion. And that would take us up just to the Amy Street intersection, doing the exact same thing, doing the new water line, sewer line, storm line, with the separation that we were talking about, with the sidewalks.
A quick question.
Yes.
The school that I own there,
Yes.
if you're doing Packer and Susquehanna at the same time, how are the school buses going to get the kids to the school during the school year?
And we talked about that. So one option is, and that's something we'll have to work out with the school board itself.
Well, it's not the school board.
Well, I mean, I know what you mean, but. with
Okay,
your school.
right.
Is one thing is Fort Augusta would be open. So we could bring them in and back in Fort Augusta is one option. The other thing is with Packard, until they get to this point, Susquehanna would be open. So it might be a timing thing where it's either maybe, if it's not, do you have summer school there as well? Is it used-
I'll have to check. Sometimes they have people in there in the summer, but not.
Keep in mind, you'd be able to, Packer's gonna be, or Susquehanna's gonna be open at that point.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So they'd be able to drop off there and then cross over. They just won't be able to drop off here.
That's true too.
Yeah, so if you finish Packer, that essentially gets them close to the school anyway, right? And then you'll dig up in front of the school. Does that sound, did I interpret what you said earlier
Well,
right?
someone's gonna be closed at the same time.
I'm
So
sorry, what?
again, the thing is, what we can do is either advance them in from the north side of Susquehanna, so maybe they drop off the intersection just above and walk down. They could also come in from Fort Augusta side on the back, or like Steve said too, just right up here, I mean, Susquehanna's gonna be open up to this intersection. Packer's open up to this intersection as well, so maybe at the parking lot here, you could
Yeah,
drop off.
they use
walk
that
up the
parking
sides.
lot too.
Yeah,
That's
Right.
part of the lease, actually.
right. But I'm just saying, you're gonna have all those access points to bring buses in to people coming up the sidewalks to this.
See, I thought about the one behind it, like you said, Fort Augusta.
Mhm.
If we took down some of the chain link fence in the back, because I was trying to figure out the plan as well. And then maybe they could come down there and we could let them, because you're not going to work on Fort Augusta.
Right, we're not going.
So maybe they could drop them off and pick them up if I put a gate in instead of 2 sections of solid
We
fence.
actually looked at that, I think there was a gate there, wasn't there?
There is a gate there. What the problem is getting buses in and out of there. Once you get them in there, then you gotta back them out kind of sort of.
Right?
Packer's gonna be closed, which is why I was saying, you're gonna have Packer and Susquehanna are gonna be open, okay? When you come up from Juigi's, you're gonna be come all the way up to Susquehanna and make a left. As soon as you make the left on Susquehanna and go down where's Turkey Hill, you can drop your kids off, they can walk right in. Now we'll have to work with them in the time period where they're in that intersection, where the contractor's working in an intersection.
Right.
But that'd be the only restricting time that you'd have to come up with an alternative plan. And at that point.
But they could cross the street then when you're working?
Yeah,
Should be able to, yes.
yeah.
Okay,
We make a pedestrian crossing path.
yeah, all right,
It's like
that's,
Steve's saying, at
that's
the
good.
beginning of it, they could cross over here in the front in Susquehanna. Once you got around the corner, we can make a crossing path back here on Packer. We'll work it out with them.
Yeah,
so that,
I mean, I was thinking the same thing like you guys, maybe open up a gate on the side or the back, or, you
Yeah.
know, just work around the project, basically.
Right, yeah, and we'll definitely, and as far as all the homeowners, we'll work with you as far as getting access to your homes. We don't expect you not to have any access at all. Now, as far as parking, most of them, you're going to have to park at the rear of your lots, or we're going to try to also work with the owner who owns the old Turkey Hill, seeing if we can't use that as a parking lot for some of your homes that are in that area. But I mean, we're definitely going to use all the side streets that we can, as much as we can. And again, that's why we're only doing these first 2 blocks at a time, get that reopened before we do Packer, so we don't create too much of a shortage of parking. But as far as access, the sidewalks for the most part aren't going to be touched, besides some of the areas where you got a patch. But again, they can make them so that in the evening hours you still have access, or you can walk into your homes one way or another.
How is this gonna affect the truck traffic on Packer Street?
We have a detour set up for that. So what we're going to do is detour them around.
They're gonna go down Edison. We'll send them down Edison and then down to Reagan. So you'll come in and out of Reagan and Edison to hit Packer, and coming out, you come up Packer, hit Edison, make a left, go down to Reagan, go up to the red light, and you're out.
What about the back of Alice Street, goes all the way back, the property opens up and you can get through there the back way?
I mean, we're gonna put the detour up to Reagan, just because it offers a little bit more room. But, you know, we can't control. There may be trucks that decide to go down that way and find that more efficient for them in particular.
Well, it's gated off, so they'd have to open the gate, but if you go down Alice Street and go all the way to the back, it takes you right around to the front of that building,
You know?
so.
When is the project planning to start?
By next spring. So we're, next spring.
Possibly early next spring, if we have a light winter. If we have a light winter and we have an early bid to get this project moving, we're planning on giving them authorization to start with some of the demolition work, get their M&P put up, and start getting things moving so that this gets done in a timely manner.
What is the duration?
If we do that, we're probably going to try to have this thing finished up by the end of next fall.
So
about
6 months, 8 months?
No, probably
8 months probably, yeah.
Yeah.
When you talk about widening the street 6 feet, you're gonna take 3 from each side.
Yep.
Okay, so the sidewalk is still gonna be 5 feet, and then the grass is gonna be.
It's roughly about 2 feet is about what you end up with.
Okay.
I can tell you, in front of our house, there's only about 3 feet of grass. So does that mean the street's gonna come right up to the edge of the sidewalk then?
I tell you, in most places it's, when we're done, you show me your address, I'll show you what it looks like.
Right.
And if anybody wants to see that, I can show you on the drawings exactly what things.
Yeah, I think that's the same situation.
She'd like to know, she's has her house facing Packer, but she can't speak loud enough. She said, are you gonna take 3 feet off Packer too?
No.
No.
Packer's wide enough.
Okay,
We're not changing Packer.
thank you.
Go ahead, George.
Right in back of there, do some back down in front of Miranda's.
Could I ask the logistics of your changing the stormwater, which is obvious, and then you said about UGI and so forth, and I believe it was on Mosser Street, you said you're going to do the sewer, but you're not going to do the water. What's the logistics of that?
So,
I mean, one may be as old as the other.
well, it's not so much that. It's as far as with, so in Masser, there's 2 inlets in Masser that crosses a line that goes across Front Street. Right now, that's combined. So what we are going to do is put the new sewer line in that actually separates the sewer off, leaving the storm line. So yes, you're right, that's an older line that, yeah, it could be replaced, I guess, while we're there, but the problem is, we only have so many dollars to go so far. So our focus is to go ahead and upgrade storm and sewer where we have to create separation. The other thing is to take care of this flooding issues we've had, you know, as far as Reagan Street and down South Second Street, or North Second Street. And also to provide sewer capacity and water capacity, well, water capacity is right there, but sewer capacity for up the Celotex property. That way, we have future growth there for hopefully bring business back in the summer.
And the other question is, will there be any availability for like shade trees, appropriate shade trees? I know some of them are like chestnut and maple and so forth, but would there be any consideration for shade trees? Because if we continue to cut down our shade trees, we're going to look like the desert.
The problem is there's just not much space. So when you get down to having like only 2 foot of space, what we were just talking about, between curbs and sidewalk, that's not enough room for a tree. Don't disagree with you. I think we all feel that same way. It just, if there's places for them, yes, I would think the city would look at it. But the problem is, on the majority of these this product area we're talking right now, there's not any space.
So if I have a shade tree in front of my house right now, I have a pear, and it's between my sidewalk and the street, you're going to take that when you widen?
Probably. Again, if you come up backwards and tell me what your address is, I'll show you your property and we can look at it individually.
I mean, is there any possibility?
In front of my house. It's a shame. It's shade in front of my house is going to be hot. It's going to look hot.
Is there any possibility of doing,
Young just mentioned about a pear tree, and that's a smaller species. I think you might see some of that brought back in, but the maples and the oaks, they won't be there.
Right. That's what I was saying, appropriate shade trees, because that's going to, I know that there's some people that have concerns about, you know, the birds and the waste from the trees and whatever, but they should also consider that that's going to help cool their homes, you know.
That's exactly why I have a shade tree up there in front of my house. I put it there 18 years ago.
And the question of Packard, Steve corrected me. There is one, so in this section through here, we are widening it, but it's not as much. It's 1.5 foot each side. Because currently, it's 35 feet, and we're going to 38 feet. And we're trying to make it so it's the same width the whole way through. There are some areas of Packard we're actually going to do the opposite. We're actually going to pull it in so it's not so wide. But as you guys know, when the trucks come off of Front Street, it's a little bit tight for passing. So we are going to widen it 3 feet. But it's not as much as what we want.
So it's 3 feet, 1 foot, 1.5 foot on each side?
That's correct.
So that's where her tree is, I think. So maybe you should, when he finishes, go up and talk to him and show him.
Is that
Yes.
a really
Yeah,
large
just
tree?
Just have him come up and
It's
show.
a decent size, it's one of those red
There's a
maple,
really large
yeah.
one there front and back, and that's definitely something. That has to go.
Yeah, it's a big
Left
tree.
side,
Is it this one?
no, other side of the street, come back a little.
This one?
Yeah,
No, in front of the white car.
Sorry, I didn't mean to show you.
There's one right in front of
This
the
one
white,
right
yeah,
here?
right there.
Again, come up backwards and talk with me specifically, I'll show you.
That's gotta go. Foot and a half, huh? If you want me in my petition to figure that out.
While it's appreciated that there's progress, there should also be consideration for legacy.
We don't disagree. Just the problem is there's just big trees where there should never have been.
They've been there longer than you and I.
I know, but they're doing a lot of damage too to the street and to the sidewalks.
I think the trucks are
going down Packer Street.
I have one of the nicest sidewalks.
The trucks are
I
doing
don't
damage
disagree
to
with that
the
either.
streets.
Yeah, them trucks are coming off of Front Street. If they don't have to stop, they're coming off Front Street 40 miles an hour, or Packer. You should watch our security cameras at that intersection.
Yeah, there's so many times I've walked my dog through that intersection and almost didn't get it.
Yeah,
Well,
and we were told that business was gonna leave to get the trucks off of Packer.
And Josh, I think you were up with Linda,
Yes,
and you guys discussed about rerouting the trucks.
well,
And Linda told us there was money there to reroute them out along the railroad tracks to come to Front Street.
well, once again, that was in conversation with the county, with the whole lot extension, and like there's a little piece in it that's owned by the railroad, so that's another hold up there. So it's not like there's a straight from that lot to Celotex, there's a piece of railroad in there, it's just a matter of them getting on board when that lot gets developed as well, being an alternate truck route in and out of that property as well. So like there's many multiple moving pieces for that to take place, and so with the county and us with the city making moving that piece of property for a sell tax and trying to get access for the railroad, that little piece that they own, it's just trying to get all those pieces to come together at the same time. It's not gonna happen overnight. And you know, talking probably with Jim, who no longer more than anybody, like dealing with the railroad is not easy. So it's just trying to get everybody to play together for the same purpose. It's one of those things, it doesn't affect them, so you know, that little piece of property is on the back burner, well, you know, it's a priority. We're just trying to get the ball rolling as quickly as we can.
And with anything being no guarantees that that'll ever happen, that's why we're widening, we're at least trying to accommodate a little bit there and widen for where they come off of Front Street.
Yeah,
Okay?
but again,
Because-
this trucking company moved into the neighborhood 8-10 years ago, and they're destroying our properties.
And
I
we've been
mean,
there longer than that.
Our houses are filthy from the dirt. You don't realize the dirt we get from the.
No, listen, we're all on
You
board to
saw
try
the
to.
one up there, he's
Yeah.
smiling.
We're all on board to try to reroute them. What I'm saying is there's nothing written in stone saying that's gonna happen, so
Well,
we're
what gives
just,
them the right to come in the neighborhood and just take it over?
pardon me?
What gives them the right to come in our neighborhood and just take over
Oh, I'm
the
sorry,
street?
sir, I'm not a politician, you gotta talk.
Whether we agree or disagree what business goes there, once again, the city doesn't own the property, and as long as they meet the code to do what they can do out of that property, we can't say they can't run trucks. That's like me trying to say, Councilman Barnhart, I don't like your vehicle, you can't run on the streets.
But ain't there an ordinance in the way it's done?
You have an ordinance already that says they can't park trucks in residential areas on the books. So, I mean, there's definitely one that they can't like park their big semi in residential areas, or there used to be. So, can't you make some streets non-commercial, no 18-wheelers? That's the same, New York City has it that way all
I mean,
over.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying,
Right.
but then we also gotta realize if we would do something like that on Packer Street, you just isolated that whole property there for any type of business coming in. And, I mean, there's pros and cons, everything, I understand your issue there, but if we would just say we would do something like that, what could possibly go in that property that would be beneficial to everyone with jobs and income, paying taxes and those types of things? And those are issues that we would have to sit down and weigh out, not just as a
But that's why it
council.
would be good if you rerouted them, like they were saying, if you could get the
Yeah,
railroad.
and as Steve said,
Yeah.
nothing, like, that's the ideal, in an ideal
Exactly.
world, but just in case that doesn't happen, we have to plan for the worst and say, if that does not happen, at least there's a better option out of the property if that, you know, if that does not happen. But like I said, we're trying to plan for the worst, but hope for the best if that does go through that way.
That spring of 2024, you're still,
Yes, that,
isn't Bimbo pulling out of there this year? Up to their new, they said they were in 2023.
once again, like, that's, if they do, yeah.
Yeah, they are building that distribution center, and they're supposed to move that up there.
Yeah, but, you know, nothing's, you know, who knows what's gonna come in next either. So,
Oh, okay.
you know, just planning, you know, hate to say it, planning for the worst, but hoping for the best.
I just want to mention, Mark, the county and the city's working to give an entrance exit up on the Celtech site.
That would be good,
So when you go up Susquehanna and come out on the front street, it's dangerous.
right?
It's tough. Right in that general area there would be the area that we're looking at to actually put an intersection. We just had a study done for a traffic signal, so we're moving on it. Will it be built next year? No, but we're getting closer every day to put the agreement together and start on it.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. I
Then
mean,
our idea would take all that traffic from the trucks you're mentioning, up around where the conversation Scott was with Linda Culver. Where's Scott? Oh, there you are. and out that route there. So it's down the road, but we're working on it.
I had a question. As far as the tree, we were talking about the trees earlier. Is it possible to design in tree wells like we did on Market Street? You know, like every so often have a well that isn't gonna.
There's not space on these.
No, I mean, it would encroach on the sidewalk for just a short distance, but that's allowable by code.
That's the problem, like even with these, in a lot of places, you're only gonna have maybe 8 feet, and you gotta have 5 foot for pedestrians.
Well, I mean, that's what we did on Market Street, like in front of the police department and other places, we have those grates around
Yeah,
the
but I
tree,
think
and
that's an
it takes away from the sidewalk, but at the same
But it's a lot
time,
of water up through there.
You still have 8 foot of sidewalk there though.
Yeah.
You're a lot of distance between your curb and your front of your business, so we can maintain 8 to 10 foot sidewalks
Yeah.
and put a tree box there.
Right.
Here, you're gonna have very minimal distance. You're gonna have 5 foot of sidewalk, you're gonna have 2 foot of grass, and you're gonna have a curb. There's just not enough room. It'd be great to put trees back in
yeah.
if they were the appropriate trees.
Or you could
too.
even do a bulb out every so often, you know, it's not impossible.
The amount of parking that we have in this city, I dare not take away any parking for a tree. I'm sorry, I just don't. There's a lot of parking issues in this city, and every parking spot that we can keep
Yeah.
and salvage, we try. So,
So when you expand Susquehanna, and then you go your 5 feet for the sidewalks, if that is in the middle of, say, the stairs to the front of our house, are you gonna take the steps out?
No.
No, you'll just pour around them with it.
Go ahead, ma'am.
If you should extend to Amy Street, and your house is only wheelchair accessible from the front, will you still be able to walk down the sidewalks, the side of the church, and up to the house?
Yes, if you have that situation, we'll make sure the contractor provides you access at all times.
Is there gonna be a website or something to get updates?
Did you do that for Reagan?
On the website?
Yeah.
Well, we can.
That's something you could easily do though.
Yeah, we can put it on our website.
It'd be easy.
We can make on our current website, we can make a button that individuals can click on. That could be an update for this project, and it will take you to, and.
Well, it'd probably be better than getting 100 phone calls, same question. And I'd be one of those making those calls. You know, just letting you know.
No, well, that's something we'll definitely.
Makes sense.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Is this gonna help alleviate Reagan Street underpass a little more when this is done? Because Sunday night, that was flooded again.
Well, actually, go ahead, Steve.
It was his fault.
that was, we had a power outage out at the flood control station.
Oh, okay.
That's what
Okay, and as soon as they got power rolling, and they got everything working, I literally pulled up there Sunday, went to the back of my truck, put the tailgate down and started getting road closed sign out, and the police officer pulled up to me and says, "What are you getting that out for? I just drove through it, there's nothing in there." Because as soon as they opened everything up, it went right down.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the PP&L trucks out there. but
No, I
It
didn't.
blew all three fuses on the 3-phase coming into the flood control building. And luckily Jeff had a handle on it and got it all taken care of, and everything went smooth. We didn't even have to close the road.
Okay.
Yep, we didn't have any capacity problem.
Trust me, Joe, when the phone calls came down, it was flooding. Everybody's panicking. I called Jeff right away. It's just, I'm going there now. And then Steve called and said it was the power, not the situation.
Okay.
And we had gotten a lot of rain.
I just tried to go through there that night, and it was flooded, and I was like,
Yeah,
what?
it was, believe me, it was,
You were probably saying, look at this.
But this will help. I mean, once this is done, it's another line going across Packard. Now, it's still all combined at this point. We can't, yes, every phase we do, that piece is separated, but we're still going into a combined pump station at Reagan.
Right, okay.
It's not until we get all this done from Susquehanna, from Reagan clear to Front Street, and everything from Reagan, or from Susquehanna out to Front Street, separated.
Where you're gonna go under
Finally
again.
have a separated system.
Yeah, okay.
At that point, then you're gonna see a massive change, because what's gonna happen at that point is we're gonna put a dividing wall in the pump station where it was originally set up to be. All the storm water will be on the north side of the station, all the sewers on the south side of the station. So it's gonna be a great savings for the authority, because now they're not treating all the stormwater. It's gonna go discharge straight to the river. As a matter of fact, the majority of the time, it won't be pumped, it'll actually just flow to the river. Right now, it's pumped all the time.
Right.
So that's gonna majorly, make all this better as far as the flooding situations. So even like this, what we're lining, this 48-inch line on Packard, eventually said it's going to be extended clear to the railroad tracks in front of those trucking companies. But also turns and goes up North Second Street, to take care of the flooding issues up in that area.
Okay.
So it's going to take some process, it's going to be a little bit of time to get there, but once this is all separated, you shouldn't have any flooding in those areas. I won't say it never happened, but it'll be a 100-year storm for it to happen.
All right, okay.
Also, Joe, that parcel we're referring to from Reagan north from the tracks west is roughly 137 acres. And Lee, you said about 96% separation. So that's a lot of water that would be taken out of the system, not the sewer plant itself. And most of it's all gravity fed, and we'll be saving money, of course, running the pumps. Now it just goes out on its own. It's a massive project, and we'll be tying into the Celtech site, which also provides us to develop that, have the storm taken care of and the sewer and water up there.
Right.
So overall, when it's done, we've accomplished a lot. Working with the authority close on, all these projects were hand in hand, and of course, the flood control folks.
All right.
So the stormwater is just gonna go right into the river?
Yes.
So, many studies done on anything like chemicals going into the river?
That's the way every single street across Pennsylvania flows. You drive out 890, all water goes off road right into the creek. I mean, that's the most natural, best way to handle your storm water. Problem is we were a combined system, and that's what we're trying to change.
Didn't the state mandate that you guys by a certain time had to split your system anyway?
They are under a mandate to create 85% capture. So what they're saying there is that 85% of the time, they don't want anything to overflow into the river as far as the combined stormwater sewer. I think it's treated. So that's what they're under mandate. Is that correct? That's correct for you. Yes.
So, I think it was Scott or someone back here, to their point, have you been touching base with, I'm gonna call it Buttercrust, Bimbo, whoever, and Patton to see if in fact they are leaving the city before you put any of this in?
No, and the reason why, because it's still all zoned industrial. So it goes back to what Josh talked earlier. Unfortunately, I feel your concerns as far as being the residents next to Packard, but it's set up for, that is one of the main collectors to go through the city. It's, no matter who's there or who leaves, it's always going to be an industrial site back where they gotta have truck access.
Right, I get that, but to, thinking about how you're actually gonna construct this whole thing. That Jim had said about they're looking into a different pathway for that complex to exit and enter at Front and Susquehanna in about that area.
Right.
So, that's kind of my point.
But to what Jim was saying, there's no guarantee we can take that all the way back to those industrial sites, because between the Celtech site and that we call the 21 acres, which is referred to as the Celtech site, and those industrial properties, has the Norfolk Southern has a sliver that goes from the railroad down to the fencing. So they own that portion. So if they don't want to give us access, whether it's sell it to us, give it to us in easement, we can't put a roadway across there. So if they want to say, nope, you can't have access, then we don't, our plan B that we are trying to plan for, we won't have that in place already. So therefore, we're in a no-win situation. We didn't have the plan B and we can't do our plan A. So it's going to be as narrow as it is currently and cause some issues that it currently has because of the narrow width.
So isn't there already an easement on the books because there was businesses back in that area, back in the day?
Once again, there was never any connecting between the two. Like I said, that little sliver is owned by the railroad, so there was never any easement between those two properties. Yeah, for a roadway, because they always come out Packer Street, Celotex went out their 2 routes, they never cross paths. So as we're saying, we're hoping for the best. If we can get easement, great. But if we can't, we're planning that Packer Street can still take the truck traffic because those parcels are zoned industrial, and if Bimbo does leave and some other, we'll say trucking company comes in, we want to be prepared the best we can to still handle that truck traffic.
Right.
And we're, like I said, we're doing everything that we can, but we've got to plan for both scenarios.
Right, but the intent of the railroad back in the day was that they brought product in on that side rail.
Back in the day, yeah.
Well, and so did that go away? I mean, there had to be some kind of an agreement, you know, that rail.
But it's their property.
It's their property. And they could say the same thing, well, we want to keep it because since it's industrial, we still want to have that option on the table. We'll say, whoever goes in there, oh, we want to use the rail again, we still want to have that rail there for them to use and, you know, we'll say for lack of terms, lease it out to get a couple dollars in return. Like that could be their thinking, we don't know. Like I said, we just have to plan for both scenarios if it doesn't go either way.
So taking out the rail that crosses Packer Street is not a given?
That is gonna happen. The railroad that crosses Packer, it's taken me 4 years to get to this point with Norfolk Southern and working with all our Georgia people and everything else. That will be coming out when we redo Packer. Packer from Susquehanna down to 4th Street, we have a grant for it, I have money locked up for it, we're good to go with that, but we have to get this portion of Susquehanna done first because the water that we're gonna be putting in down there and the drainage all comes back to this. So this infrastructure needs to be in place first. I know Packer sucks, I'm sorry, I do everything I can to keep it as good as I can, but it doesn't make any sense for me to go up there and patch it any better than I am right now, because I'm just throwing money away. We're gonna fix that right, it just, we have to get this infrastructure in place first.
So what happens if Patton does leave that building that they currently have and another industry comes in and they want their product to come in by rail, then what?
That still comes in through the back side.
I know, as she's taught, I think we're talking 2 different tracks. So the tracks where the light bars go down, that's active. The other set of tracks that is there, that is inactive, that does not connect into anything anymore.
Behind Sunbury Cold Storage.
Next to the rescue, the ones right up from the rescues there, that is not active, there's no, that does not
And
connect to the main
actually,
rail.
Moran Industries owns the tracks now. Okay, so Moran Industries owns the tracks next to their building now. On the set of tracks, of the dead set of tracks that are sitting in the middle of that disaster on Packer, that doesn't go anywhere. That's just gonna go. So they've already agreed to leave that go. We've already have an agreement with them that that'll be taken care of. Beyond that, that's, like I said, that's something completely different. Now, if we can get up there along 2nd Street and run that all the way up past there, up to John and kick out to Susquehanna and stuff, as we're hoping we can eventually do, that's gonna be phenomenal. So we're trying like hell. The council people are all working their butts off on this. The mayor's working his butt off on it, but it just takes time.
Okay, thank you.
Lee, continue.
Yeah, no, I think at this point, just questions. Like I said, as far as anyone individually wants to look at your property and what the product looks like in front of your home, just after we're done, just come up, you know, just stand in line one at a time. We'll walk through it with you individually. But if you have any other general questions, we're here to answer them.
Yes.
Question, this is phase 1. Just how many phases are there to this project?
Good question.
Because it doesn't, you know, you're saying, okay, 2 blocks here, but when you go to the next part, that's going to rearrange those 2 blocks that finally get to park in front of their house or get to their house. Everyone else has to use that too. So honestly, how many phases are you looking at for this project?
It's very dependent, on funding. It's very dependent, on timing. It's very dependent on a lot of different factors, how many phases it's gonna be broken up into. one thing is for certain, our goal is to go all the way up Susquehanna, completely up to Front Street. Our goal is to go all the way down Packer Street, from Front Street all the way down to 4th Street. Our goal is to eventually put in a new traffic signal down there at the old Celotex area. We have a lot of goals. A lot of that comes with a lot of funding. We have a great city administrator here that's been busting his butt trying to get grants for us, and he's been doing real good. And we are getting grants and things are coming along, but there are no guarantees in this. Everybody here is just working towards the same goal. And eventually, we hope to have it all done.
Generally, for Susquehanna itself, probably 3 phases. So this is the first phase of Susquehanna, there'll be 2 more. Goes back to trying to not disrupt too many blocks at one time, just because we're very limited with parking, we fully understand that.
That's why we broke this first phase up into 2 separate.
Yeah.
We were gonna run this all contingent, and it just would have been a disaster if we would have tried to run shutting off Packer and Susquehanna. So that's why we split it the way we did.
And there's also work in Fort Augusta that gets done, from Julia north. So again, we can't disrupt Fort Augusta and Julia when we have Susquehanna on the other side of the messed up, so it's at least 3 phases.
So is Susquehanna Avenue the only street being affected, or is Edison gonna be done then?
No, Edison does not get touched with this project.
What I'm really surprised, I'm surprised that everybody is, that no one of you has asked me, how the hell are we getting our mail?
How they gonna get their mail?
I said, I don't wanna be the only one asking you don't.
So how are you gonna get your mail? Basically, what we did when we did the Reagan Street job is we brought in mailboxes that we had, and we basically down there at DPW, we took 5-gallon buckets, poured them full of concrete, put a stub in there, and put a mailbox on it, and put it out behind your home. With the amount of people that we have up there, we're looking at a few different options on whether we're gonna make like a common rack of boxes centrally in each one of the little blocks. Because we do have a few duplexes down there that have more than one resident in a home. So we're looking at a lot of options on how to do that. We're also gonna be putting in there with the contractor that they have to maintain pedestrian access to the front of the homes at all times if they can. There are gonna be times there's not gonna be able to, but there's gonna be times where they may have to have a little boardwalk in there, some planking down, something to get you through, but you're gonna have sidewalk getting tore out, you're gonna have your services being put into your homes. It's not gonna be easy, but they're gonna really try hard to keep that going. But the mail, like I said, it's probably gonna come into the back of your homes at all possible. The tricky ones are gonna be right down by Turkey Hill. They're gonna get tricky.
So you're gonna have mailboxes for those of us on the
What's
side
that?
so those of us who live on the side that backs up to Fort Augusta, you're gonna have mailboxes along Fort Augusta?
Yep. Yeah, and the post office worked with us real well down there on Reagan Street, we did this. And there's gonna be, challenges and issues along the way. We're all here to work together for the common good and make this work, so.
Okay, so since we're on the silly questions, when you're right out in front of my house doing sewer pipes, does that mean there's no access to restrooms, washing clothing, that type thing for when?
Just hold it for a week.
That's where the other half of
That's what I'm thinking.
So typically, I'm surely not saying they always do, but they should be at least knocking on your door and letting you know that day, hey, for a couple hours, we'll be working with your sewer line.
But the best part is the mayor lives right around the corner, so.
Listen, I experienced it the last 2 years, so not having a road in.
Actually, it's just close to our house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a street project, go to her place.
If you're at home, run down to Jim's.
How long was the project that they just finished by Turkey Hill? That was projected was
3
it
months?
projected 8 months and went 2 years?
Well, that was the whole, lack of terms, the whole COVID thing when they couldn't get materials. It wasn't due to the fact that the contractor couldn't do the job. It was the contractor having to wait on getting materials because it wasn't like, oh, Sunbury was the only city in the whole country that was doing projects. I mean, everyone else was, and they just, like everybody else, had to wait to get the materials. So that's why that project took as long as it did because, not just construction, like anything at the time, like you couldn't get anything, so that's why it took as long as it did, not because the contractor couldn't do the work, because they were just waiting on the materials.
So, I mean, so 8 months is a pretty solid number, or is it 8 months and then 12 months later, we're looking at 4 months more?
Now, Reagan Street, actually, the timing was actually per the contract. The reason why we did
Oh, that's
it that
good.
way, it was way more complicated.
Yeah.
We were way deeper. The Front Street crossing was extremely deep, if you remember when that was.
I remember, you had those big steel cages for it working.
And then the other major problem we had was going under the underpass. And that was very, very complicated. It wasn't very simple. It took forever to get under that and past it, just because we had to do some very unique things in construction to make it happen. So there was a lot of time-sensitive stuff there, with also, like Josh said, back then we also had issues with supply chain. But it actually was designed to take the 2-year period that it did. As a matter of fact, PennDOT wanted us to do it that way so it would give time for the road to settle before we put our final paving course on. So that was why that took so long. This one here is not the same. It's going to be a lot shallower. Like the sewer will still be deep for the most part, but your storm lines, besides one coming across back, but still it's not going to be near as deep as what it was Reagan. Reagan, we were 24 feet deep.
Wow.
This one here is only 15.
Yeah.
15 still deep, but 9 foot shallow what the other one was.
And I understand permitting was another issue on Reagan Street because of going under the underpass?
We work with Norfolk Southern, yeah. Norfolk Southern's always lovely to work with.
Yeah.
This one, we've already got our PennDOT HOP permit. We actually just got it this week. We're submitting plans to Conservation District. We should have all our permits probably by the end of this month. So we're ready to go to do this project. We're waiting on some funding to figure out, because the monies that the city has now, we want to use those, stretch them as far as we can for matching monies. And so we're waiting to hear on a couple of different grants. That's why we're not bidding it out currently, but we have it ready to go. So as soon as we hear about some grants timeline, which will be like in August, September, as soon as we get notifications of those, this will be going out to bid. And like Steve said, our start date is hopefully early spring, depending upon what the weather is.
If you do get the additional funding after you finish at Packer Street, what's your estimated timeline from Packer to 80? Will that be next year, or are we looking at 25?
Well, if we get the additional funding, it'll probably be just tied with this project. So it'll be done the same time as Packer. We're getting going up to 80 to that next intersection. The next piece, it's 90% designed. We got it pretty close to be ready to go for permitting for that. If we get the additional funding, we'll be working on the final design of that, getting those permits in, and probably we'll just continue the process the following year going into the next phase. That's how we would like to advance, but it all depends on the funding portion.
I'm one of the pastors at the God's Missionary Church, and we've got a couple parking lots there. Obviously, those parking lots, people can use during the week and stuff, but is that going to affect, we have Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night church, so we would need those parking lots for that. Is that gonna be a problem? Or is it okay, right now we have towing signs that if people park there without permission, they'll get towed, but is it still okay to have those only for church use during church service times, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we fully understand that. I'm sure everyone in this room understands.
Yeah, and with all the parking, obviously, people are gonna need a space to park, and they're welcome to park there, when it's not a church service time, but just wanted to check on that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, when it comes time, as far as, we did in the previous Reagan Street project, even when we did Chestnut Street, we did the same thing. When we're getting ready to close the first 2 blocks of Susquehanna, the city will, ahead of time, will notify each landowner. We'll send them letters explaining when the project's going to start, when the street will be closed, the projected time, how long it'll be closed, and we'll work with you as far as trying to find places to park if you don't have access to the rear of your properties to park. So we've done that in the past, and I know we'll be doing the exact same thing with this project. Like Steve says, he'll work with each homeowner as far as make sure you get your mail. We understand during the time that it is a little bit of a pain, and it can convenience, but at the end of the day, we ought to get this to where the front of your house would be much nicer once this is completed.
When a car comes down the opposite way, you won't have to pull over and let them go by, and then, you go, hopefully. That won't be an issue moving forward, and everybody can go by at the same time, which would be, I'm sure everybody would appreciate too.
But that said, it might turn into a racetrack, as
It
some of
already
the other
is.
streets are.
It already is, down at the area especially that you want, that's where my home is, and those blighted properties down there and everything else, and the people that are coming in and out of those properties, because we're not following up with landlords, there are cars of all hours racing up and down that street, just going in and out of those properties. It's already an issue.
There's nothing we do to the street that's gonna make that better or
Well, I'm
worse.
just, no, I know, but
What
they're
I-
saying
what I-
widening it, it's
What I
it's
can
gonna
tell
be
you
worse.
from 33 years of highway work, we get done with the highway, people are gonna go fast. That's just how it works. The only thing we can do is we can have law enforcement get out there and work on hammering these people for speeding, okay? The enforcement is the key to that issue. I can put every sign up in the world, they're just gonna ignore it. I can paint as many stops, slows, whatever you want the road, they're gonna ignore it. You just need to have some enforcement out there, and I'm sure Brad will have people out there, just like he helped out with Reagan Street. He spent a lot of time on Reagan Street watching for speeders. After we open that, we'll do the same thing up there.
Well, I appreciate that the city came down and replaced the stop signs at the corner of Packer and Susquehanna there,
Yep.
because
Made them
it
bigger.
made them a lot more visible.
Yep, yeah, whatever we can do to try, like I said, on our end, I can put up all signs and try everything I can, but until.
I still wanna sit there with a paintball gun.
Yeah.
They won't even know you
Don't
have
limit yourself to a paintball.
Joe, you're not recording that.
I'll join you, Brian.
Swear about Brian, no one about you.
Okay.
It's just a known fact, the wider the street, the faster they go, though.
We had the same issue on Reagan when it was done. There was people that were going faster, and the police did sit there and, especially in the beginning, they noticed it too. So, there was targeted enforcement afterwards as well, so it would be the same principle here.
That's great, then maybe they can watch some of the homes down there with all the traffic in and out. I've reported it before, there's specifically some homes where it's all hours, and you know why it's going in and out.
With parking being at a premium during the project, is there any thought to allowing people to park on Packer Street during days the street sweeper's supposed to?
Oh, there'll be, when we get into this project, just like it was on Reagan and surrounding streets, we suspended it. We'll do everything to work with you guys on that. We'll absolutely, we'll take care of it. We did the same thing where I worked with Chief Hare on that to make sure we weren't enforcing where the sweeper could sneak in and getting stuck in and got, otherwise, just, we understand you guys need someplace to park.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions?
While there's a wall, and most of you folks that kind of are involved in the water and whatnot, the wall and so forth of our city, is there any vision towards, raising or reinforcing our wall here in the city, since many of the communities above us have done so?
I'll let Jeff answer this question.
Those communities above us that raised their, Bloomsburg, for example, they built a whole new system, but they're back far, that the study was done to show that it will not impact Sunbury in any way. It's set back so far that it will not impact us in any way. The wall itself is very sturdy condition right now. We actually do these things called ultrasonic testing, where we test the metal, rebar, and everything in it, and everything seems fine. So I live up there before myself. I have every confidence that it will hold up.
Okay, because, there's quite a few above us that have.
Yep, and there's always a study done that shows that the Army Corps has to prove it. It's all been done.
Yeah, there's a very stringent certification process that each one of these flood systems has to go through. And while those are getting done, is you have to have 3 foot of freeboard above your 100-year flood elevation. And your system actually is proved that it passes that. Well, those up there did not, or they didn't meet even 100 years in some cases. Or they went through and they did detailed inspections, and there was things that through the inspections they failed. So these are being done all over the United States. That's why you're seeing a lot of them getting updated. That's all happened because of what happened down in New Orleans, 15 years ago, 20 years ago it was.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's been inspected, and Jeff and their guys, they inspect it constantly. They constantly report here every year, going through an inspection, so it's constantly monitored, and your system is one of the best in the state.
Okay, while you're all together, I just thought I'd ask.
Jeff, you want to mention about the project, you got the summer down there, talking about flood wall, the WP wall, you replace it?
That's one of the things too, that on the riverside of the wall, down where you go to Chestnut Street, there was hand-laid stone walls that were slowly replaced, and we're doing another one of them this year. It's a $500,000 project to replace them. Even though they're not part of this flood wall, they are in a sense because they protect it. Those walls are constantly falling, those hand-laid walls. So when they start falling and you get water with them, that's going to wash away, go right into the wall and destabilize the wall during a flood event. So we're working on that as well. We're doing those types of things to stabilize it even more.
And the one near the Edison Bridge as well? Because it looks like some of that is like falling away, and like somebody maybe just dumped stone there?
On the land side or the riverside?
On the riverside. Like when you're coming off of the bridge, you can
No,
see
we're
that.
talking about, yes. That was actually put in by the Corps with all that stuff laid there.
Right.
That was, yes. And I'll have to take a look, but I don't know where you're talking about where it's falling, so I don't recall seeing anything fall there.
When you come off the bridge, if you're observant, you can see.
Are you talking like coming on the street side, not the riverside?
If you're coming from Northumberland on the Edison Bridge
Yeah.
and you get to the curve. where
Yeah,
you're
so
going-
on the street side, before you go under the underpass. That,
Well, as you're coming off of the bridge and you look where you can walk on the land there and cross the tracks in that area, from the curve when you're coming off of the bridge, if you look at that side there, it looks like there was shale or something dumped because it's falling away there. I've seen that for a couple of years.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. I'll go with my guys and we'll take a look at it.
Do you know where I mean now?
I know the area you're talking about, yeah, but I don't know what you're trying
It's
to describe
between
there.
where you're coming off the bridge and the actual track,
Yes,
but on the riverside.
yep, yeah, I know where you're at, yes. I'll take a look at it then.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
Like I said, if anybody wants to come up individually and give us your information, I'll show you.